San Antonio's sinkhole epidemic doesn't look like a disaster. It looks like a street. A normal, ordinary Texas street where the asphalt buckles a little more each year and nobody talks about it. But 1 in 45 buildings in America's fastest sinking city are in danger of catastrophic collapse from the ground opening beneath them. This isn't Miami. This isn't New Orleans. This is San Antonio, Texas. And the earth itself is swallowing it whole. Picture this. It's May 2025, Wilson Boulevard near Jefferson High School, San Antonio. A 12-inch water main breaks. Within hours, the street doesn't just crack, it opens. A car gets swallowed. The pavement literally collapses into a void that wasn't there before. Water system crews arrive. They pull the vehicle out. They repair the pipe. By Sunday, the road is patched. Life continues. And nobody stops to ask why a city in the middle of Texas keeps having the ground disappear beneath its feet. The answer lives 300 feet underground. San Antonio sits on top of the Edwards Aquifer, one of the most productive and most soluble limestone formations in the United States. That limestone was laid down 100 million years ago, when this area was under a prehistoric sea. But limestone isn't granite. It's not bedrock that shrugs off water. Limestone is calcium carbonate. It dissolves. Slowly, relentlessly, when water, especially water, laced with a touch of natural acid, circulates through it, the rock itself gets eaten away from the inside out. Geologists call this karst terrain. What forms is a labyrinth of caves, caverns, and hollow passages underground. Over time, the ceiling of one of those caves gets too thin. It fails. The ground collapses, and another sinkhole is born. That's happened thousands of times beneath San Antonio. But until recently, nobody knew how many buildings were actually at risk. In May 2025, researchers from Columbia University, Virginia Tech, Texas A&M, and 4 other institutions published a study in the journal Nature Cities that did something unprecedented. They used satellite imagery and space geodetic measurements from 2015 to 2021 to map subsidence, that's ground sinking, in the 28 most populous cities in the United States. What they found about San Antonio was stark. The city has 10,269 buildings rated as high risk or very high risk of damage from subsidence. That's upwards of 6,000 more buildings than any other city in the study. Austin, which also sits on limestone and also sinks, has 145 buildings at high risk. Fort Worth has 87. San Antonio has over 10,000. The ratio is 1 in 45. Every 45th building you pass on a San Antonio street is sitting on borrowed time. Leonard Owenhen is the lead researcher on that study, a postdoctoral researcher at Columbia University's Lamont Doherty Earth Observatory. When he and his team analyzed San Antonio's subsidence data, they found something else alarming. San Antonio is sinking at a rate of approximately 1.099 millimeters per year. That might not sound like much, but that's the fastest sinking rate of any major city in the United States. Not Houston, not Los Angeles. San Antonio. Picture a ruler. That tiny mark between 1 millimeter and 2. That's how much the ground beneath this city moves down every single year. Over 30 years, that's nearly a full inch. Over a century, that's over 4 inches. Structures built on solid ground 100 years ago are now sitting on unstable earth. The question is, why is this happening now? Why not 10 years ago? Why not 20? The answer is water. San Antonio, like much of Texas, is thirsty. The city has a population of 1.5 million people. Every person in that city uses water to drink, to bathe, to water lawns, to flush toilets. The Edwards Aquifer supplies roughly 2 billion gallons of water per day to the San Antonio region. But San Antonio sits in a semi-arid region of Texas. Rainfall is irregular. Droughts are longer than they used to be. So San Antonio doesn't just withdraw water from the aquifer. It withdraws more water than nature can replace. That changes the pressure inside the limestone. When water fills the pores of limestone, the rock is supported. The framework holds. But here's what they didn't tell you about how it works. When you pump out that water faster than it recharges, the pressure drops. The rock no longer has that hydraulic support. The structure starts to shift. The caverns get stressed. And sometimes, unpredictably, a ceiling collapses. May 2025 water main break near Jefferson High School is a perfect example of the scale of the problem. It wasn't a sinkhole that swallowed a car. It was a 12-inch water main, infrastructure that's been there for decades, suddenly failing because of subsidence. The street beneath it had already shifted enough that the pipe couldn't take the stress. It broke. Water poured out, and the sinkhole followed. San Antonio Water System, or SAWS, had to rush in and repair not just the pipe, but the road itself. That's not an isolated incident. That's a preview. Every year, more of these incidents happen. More pipes break, more roads need patching, more streets buckle, and the city becomes a little less stable beneath its citizens' feet. What makes this worse is that sinkholes in San Antonio aren't like sinkholes in Florida. Florida's sinkholes are dramatic and localized. A massive crater opens. A house disappears. It's sudden. San Antonio's sinkholes are different. They're a symptom of a much larger, slower process happening under the entire city. This isn't a single point of failure. This is systemic ground collapse, affecting 1 out of every 45 buildings. That's not a disaster. That's an epidemic. The city is aware of the problem. San Antonio Water System has invested over $250 million in the H2 Oaks Aquifer Storage and Recovery Project. What that means is they're building infrastructure to capture rainwater during wet periods and inject it back into the aquifer during dry periods. They've constructed 29 total ASR wells, a 30 million gallons per day water treatment facility, and tapped into the Carrizo Aquifer as a backup source. They're also implementing tiered fines for excessive water use, promoting drought-resistant landscaping, and offering free home conservation consultations. But here's the fundamental problem. No amount of conservation can fix what's already broken. The damage to the Edwards Aquifer structure, the collapse of cavern ceilings, the subsidence of the land above, that damage is permanent. These aren't challenges that disappear when you save water. These are geological scars. John Lozano, a construction professional and member of the Lovell Construction Group who works throughout San Antonio, says he's seeing sinkholes at an accelerating rate. The oldest parts of the city, neighborhoods built 50, 60, 70 years ago on top of the worst subsidence zones, are where the problems show up first. Foundations crack, utility lines break, streets fail. In some cases, entire blocks need to be rebuilt. The financial cost is enormous. The insurance cost is worse. Standard homeowners' insurance policies don't cover sinkhole damage. They classify it as earth movement, the same category as earthquakes, and most policies exclude it entirely. A homeowner in San Antonio whose house is damaged by a sinkhole is often left holding the entire repair bill, which can be $50,000, $100,000, or more. The Edwards Aquifer Authority, the regional water management agency for South Texas, understands the geological reality. The Edwards Aquifer is composed of extensively faulted, fractured, and cavernous limestone and dolomite from the early Cretaceous period. It is 100 million years old. It has been dissolving slowly for all that time. But that rate of dissolution accelerated dramatically once humans started pumping water out of it at industrial scale. What took nature 1 million years to do, hollow out enough space to make the rock unstable, we're doing in 1 century. Scale this up. Think of the infrastructure built on top of San Antonio. Hospitals, schools, office towers, highways, water mains, electrical substations, gas lines. All of it is built on the assumption that the ground beneath it will not move. But the ground is moving. Not dramatically in most places. Not catastrophically yet, but it is moving. and that movement is putting stress on everything built above it. A water main that was designed to be straight now has to bend as the ground subsides unevenly. A foundation that was perfectly level a decade ago is now tilted by fractions of an inch. Over time, that stress accumulates, and materials fail. Consider the scale of what we are talking about. 10,000 buildings at high risk, a population of 1.5 million. Even if the risk is low for each individual building, the statistical chance that at least one catastrophic failure happens in the next year is not zero. It is not even low. If sinkholes are occurring with increasing frequency, and if the buildings at risk are spread across the city, then San Antonio has essentially normalized living above a slow-motion disaster. Yet, the city grows. New neighborhoods are built. People move to San Antonio every day, unaware that they are building on a foundation that is actively subsiding. Realtors do not mention it. Homeowner inspections do not flag it. The city's growth strategy assumes the ground will not fail them. But the data suggests otherwise. Satellite imagery shows the subsidence isn't slowing. It's accelerating. What happens if a hospital in San Antonio suffers structural damage from subsidence and has to be evacuated? What happens if a water treatment plant loses integrity and contamination occurs? These aren't hypotheticals. These are infrastructure systems that a city's survival depends on. And they're all sitting on rapidly destabilizing ground. Every building, every street, every utility line is a calculated risk that nobody's explicitly calculating. The bigger question is, what's the end game? Water conservation helps. The H2 Oaks project is smart, but it doesn't undo the geological damage. It doesn't refill caverns that have collapsed. It doesn't restabilize ground that's already subsided. You can slow the rate of aquifer depletion, but you can't reverse it. The Edwards Aquifer is being drained faster than it recharges. That's the reality. That's the constraint. And as long as San Antonio needs 2 billion gallons of water a day to survive, that constraint is non-negotiable. Some cities have faced similar problems and relocated. But San Antonio is one of the largest cities in the United States. You can't just move 1.5 million people. You can't abandon the infrastructure, the neighborhoods, the businesses, the cultural history. San Antonio is built here. It's rooted here. And it's sinking. So the city has to adapt to the sinking. It has to design infrastructure that can flex and move. It has to build roads and pipes that won't fail under uneven subsidence. It has to accept that the ground beneath it is no longer stable and engineer for that reality. And if that sounds expensive, that's because it is. And if that just shook the ground under your feet, every subscriber to this channel is automatically entered in our monthly giveaway for a branded hoodie. Details in the description below. Because we believe understanding the hidden disasters of the Earth should be rewarded. The state of Texas has been watching San Antonio's problem get worse. The Texas Commission on Environmental Quality, which oversees groundwater management, has noted that overpumping from the Edwards Aquifer is a statewide problem affecting multiple cities. But San Antonio bears the brunt. Why? Because San Antonio doesn't have alternatives. Houston has multiple aquifers. Dallas has the Trinity Aquifer and surface water. San Antonio relies almost entirely on one source, the Edwards Aquifer. That's the vulnerability. That's the exposure. Lose that aquifer, even partially, and San Antonio loses its water supply. And if a city's sinking because of how much water it's using, and it can't find alternate water sources, then you're in a genuine bind. You need water to live. But getting that water is destroying your city. This is the future of southwestern water scarcity. This is what happens when population growth outpaces water resources. San Antonio is a preview. It's a case study. It's a warning. The city has to make an impossible choice. Continue growing and keep sinking, or stop growing and stop sinking. But staying static isn't an option either. The population is here. The demand is real. The geology is unchangeable. San Antonio is caught between those three constraints, and the ground beneath it is literally giving way. Leonard Ohenhen and his research team published their findings in Nature Cities because they believed the public needed to know. Not just Texans, not just San Antonio. The entire United States needs to understand that 34 million Americans live on sinking land. That's 1 in 10 people in this country. Most of them don't know. They wake up, go to work, come home, and have no idea that their city is subsiding. But it is. And San Antonio is the canary in the coal mine. It's the example. It's the worst case. And it's happening now, not decades from now. This isn't a future problem. This is a present-day disaster that's being lived by 1.5 million people who thought they were just living in a normal American city. The sinkhole near Jefferson High School in May 2025 didn't make international news. It didn't make national news. A car got swallowed by a hole in the street. The hole got fixed, and life went on. But think about that narrative. A car was literally consumed by the earth opening beneath it. That happened. That's real. That's not a metaphor. And it's one of dozens of incidents happening in San Antonio every year. How many of those have to happen before people take it seriously? How many cars have to disappear? How many buildings have to show foundation damage? How many people have to lose their homes to subsidence? The Edwards Aquifer was formed in a prehistoric sea. It's been sustaining human life in South Texas for centuries. But we've pushed it past its breaking point. We've pumped more water from it than it can sustain. We've lowered the water table. We've destabilized the rock structure beneath an entire city. And now the ground is failing. 1 millimeter per year might sound insignificant. But San Antonio has been sinking for decades. The cumulative effect is visible now. The infrastructure damage is real now. The risk to buildings is critical now. This isn't a gradual, manageable problem. This is a phase transition. The city has crossed a threshold, and there's no going back. So what's next? That's the question nobody's answering clearly. Do we keep pumping water and accept accelerating subsidence? Do we restrict growth and hope the aquifer recovers? Do we engineer our way out by building more ASR projects and finding new water sources? The city is taking steps. SAWS is doing the work. The Edwards Aquifer Authority is monitoring the situation. But there's no clear solution. There's just a race against geology. And geology always wins eventually. The ground always chooses its own behavior. San Antonio can adapt to it, but it can't control it. Remember the contradiction we started with? San Antonio is the fastest sinking city in America. But it doesn't look like a disaster. It looks like a city. A normal city where millions of people live their lives. Where kids go to school. Where families buy homes. Where businesses invest. Where the future is supposed to happen. But the ground beneath that future is literally dissolving. The earth is swallowing the city, 1 millimeter, 1 sinkhole, 1 failed water main at a time. And that's not a geological curiosity. That's not an academic study. That's a crisis that's happening right now beneath the streets of San Antonio. 1 in 45 buildings, 10,000 structures at critical risk, a population that's growing, an aquifer that's shrinking, and a city that has to keep sinking until something breaks. And when the ground beneath your city can open without warning, grab your free disaster preparedness toolkit. The link is in the description. Because understanding what's beneath you might be the only warning you get.